May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. And I am Scott, your host, and a man who is working for the weekend. Everybody's wondering to see what you will do. But what will you do? It's always a question every weekend, isn't it? That is the question. And with me is Paul. Paul is still managing and producing the show from afar, very much afar. He's doing a very sanitized version of the production these days. We only speak basically in tongues. No, we only speak by email every once in a while these days. So, Paul, hope you're out there. Hope you're doing well. Haven't actually spoken to you on the air in many months, but hopefully we can get back to that pretty soon. So, who am I? What do I do? And how do you reach me? So, I am I run a public relations and marketing consultant in Orange County, California. I run a company called Robertson Communications. And I'm also a certified story brand guide, which means I can create better brand stories, one-liners, website wireframes, sales copy, and, of course, public relations for my clients. I'm a big believer in attraction-based marketing and not such a big believer in interruption-based marketing. You guys are smart because you have tuned into a great show. This is episode 169 of the show, and we have Eddy Pham is a legend in the direct response world. Starting with his invention of the George Foreman Grill, to the Snuggie, to now the Comfeet Blanket, hundreds of products. I think he's been involved with more than 500 products, various stages. Eddy is great at listening to the market and giving the people exactly what they want. And that is the definition of marketing, actually. So he joins us on the show today to talk about his incredible career and what he's working on next. And if we're nice, he'll stick around and give us some tips towards the end of the show. And, for all those inventors out there, you've got that invention, burning a hole in your head, and you want to make sure that you get it done. Eddy's gonna take you all the way. So anyway, thanks very much for being on the show, Eddy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So you've had a fantastic career. I've looked at everything that you've done. I've looked at your LinkedIn, your websites, everything. I mean, it's pretty hard to describe you. So how would you describe you?
Tell people, first of all, I'm not an engineer. And a simple word that people can understand is I take your ideas and I make them tangible. So I have legends of engineers who work for me. I've been doing this 30 years. I got lucky enough to have my first product invented by Michael Bohm out of San Diego, who created the Foreman Grill. And originally it was supposed to be the Hulk Hogan Grill, but George Foreman said yes, and everybody else said no. So the rest is history.
Oh, man, that is wild. So you offered the grill to Hulk Hogan, and he said no.
He said no, and it was pretty historic. And the Hogan family and I are actually friends. His daughter and I are actually best friends. And she's a former client, and she laughs about it all the time. When I met her, as she was older, I didn't even know who she was. She came to my office. She goes, "My dad told me I should talk to you about bringing my product to the market." And I was like, "Who are you?"
Man, that's wild. That is so cool. You had huge success with George Foreman Grill. I had.
Yeah, I mean, millions of households around the world have bought it. I think there's 26 different iterations of the grill now. George Foreman is no longer a part of the company or the grill. He signed off his likeness to the grill, so he can't say that it's his anymore. He doesn't get any more royalties, but he's made a lot of money.
So, Eddy, walk us through some of your inventions.
So, I mean, I'm not the inventor, so I'll be clear about that. I'm the product developer. I'm the company, my company, EFCO, Eddy Pham and Company. We're the ones that you hire to take your idea, your paper napkin inventions is what I call it, and basically bring it to market. And we help you walk through it. I invite you to meet our patent offices, our attorneys, our trademark people. We've done everything from skincare to sex aids to diet programs, motivational speeches. So anything that's touchable, if Tony Robbins is talking about it on stage, our company was one of the companies that helped package it, put it into the vinyl cassettes, put all the books together. So we do the sourcing, the manufacturing. I personally have been to 63 countries to source manufacturing all around the world, and I absolutely love it. So I'm the type of person that, I'm the person that you hire to do all the hard work, because most people just have an idea, and I'm honest and brutal to people that an idea is a dime a dozen. And most inventors say, well, I have so much passion. And I also come back and say, passion doesn't pay the bills. If you didn't have passion, then you shouldn't do it at all. But passion is not enough anymore. There's too much noise out there in the world. Everybody, especially with COVID, in today's market, our company is absolutely 412% busier than we were last year, because people are calling me going, I think I need to invent my product now. So it's pretty amazing that, people are taking their futures into their hands. And I say to my celebrity friends that you need to invent a product, because, you yourself, you're a celebrity of the studio. When the studio is done with you, they replace you. So own something.
You must have a ton of ideas. And I mean, how do you figure out what we're going to do next?
I always use myself as a test market. And it might sound selfish or something, but I'm a very jaded consumer, because I've launched so many products, 166 of them to be exact. I've worked on probably 500 products, and the balance of them never saw the light of day because of funding or corporation breaking up or whatever it might be. But 166 made the market, from George Foreman to the Comfeet, which is a 30-year spread for me personally. And what I always just move forward, and I look at myself and say, would I buy this? And if I can convince myself, person with disposable income who's very jaded, I can convince 1 million people to buy it. And it's pretty much that. It's that simple for me.
How did you learn it all?
Honestly, it was hands-on. I fell into the industry. I grew up in my family's business, restaurants. We had 22 restaurants in 4 different states. And I was the operations person for my mom. I called all the locations. I did all the purchasing. I bought all the supplies. I made sure schedules were hit. I did everything. I made sure payrolls were done. And so I got very good at a lot of touch points. And so that groomed me when, I was 21, 22. My mom had an opportunity to sell a lot of the locations to a chain. And we didn't know who the chain was at the time until the signing of the contract, the check. We found out it was Little Caesars. They bought a lot of our locations, and we had a pocket full of money. And I was 22 years old with no friends and no experience except making egg rolls. And I heard an advertisement on the radio if I wanted to be a part of a new industry, a 30-minute commercial. And to be honest, I was like, what is a 30-minute commercial? So I went there, and it was just a small office that was doing a program that was pretty hot in the early 90s called Mega Math, Mega Reading, Mega Spelling by Kevin Trudeau. And I joined on, and, I had no experience with PCs. I never used a computer in my life. I only knew how to use a cash register. And but I'm a sponge. I learned as I went, and I got very good at it. And what created my career, and this is 100% what happened, was I was doing all the invoices and collecting all the bills. And I asked the owner, I was like, why do we buy everything in California? We're in Portland, Maine. He goes, well, that's the only place I can make the product. And I took a sample of the product off the shelf, and it was literally a vinyl cassette holder, 6 cassettes, 5 different perfect bound books. And that was it. And I was like, it's an educational thing. I'm like, why can't we make them here in New England? He goes, if you can make it in New England, I'll give you a new job and a bonus. So I did what I always do. I like driving down prices, and I took out the phone book because I didn't know how to use the internet, which was very bad back then. I didn't know how to use email. So I hand wrote a fax. I faxed it to all the local printers within, I think 50 miles of our office. And I said, you have 15 minutes to come in and drop off your business card, take a sample, and you have 24 hours to give me a quote. And that literally launched my career, because I saved the company in the first year $50 million just by just taking control of it yourself. And I always say this very simply, why buy cut fries when you can cut the potatoes yourself? You save so much more money.
Absolutely, man. Well, tell me about the Snuggie.
So that was basically a product of a guy. His name is Scott Boylan. He was the owner of the Snuggie. He got the idea from a kid from college. and the kid was selling handmade blankets with arms, and it's called the Fugly, and he bought a couple of them, knocked them off in his New Jersey office, and basically brought them to market. He sent me one of the blankets and said, "Hey, we need to work on this." And I didn't see how it could sell. I'm like, who would want this? I'm like, this is such a stupid idea. And at that time, 2005, I think it was, I was trying to change my career to do better products and not products that people laughed about. But I was like, you know what, I'll do it. So I sourced the factories, and at the end of the day, almost 10 factories in China were making these, and couldn't keep up with it. I mean, millions sold, hundreds of millions of dollars made. And it was funny because frat boys from the universities were making fun of it. We were trying to figure out why so many were being shipped to, all these universities and colleges, because the schools were doing Snuggie parties versus toga parties, and it became viral before viral was a word in 2005, 2006.
Yeah, so cool. Anything in the music industry?
100%. Yeah. So, my best friend, Big Paul from Metal. And, so I met Paul because I was designing a product for a president of a label at Universal, and I met him 20 years ago, and I met all of his artists from Akon, Nelly, Lady Gaga, and I've literally consulted to them on all the products that they have to market. So in the music industry, I worked for 19 Entertainment, American Idol, and helped them put their package together to learn how to vocalize in a box. So basically software. So they have a proven track record. It was 19 seasons now, 18 or 19 seasons.
So now you've got the Comfeet Blanket. My wife and daughter are really excited about this product. Even though we live in California and the temperature never really drops very low here, they're always cold, right? What's going on with the blanket with feet?
Yeah, I came up with the idea because my friend Jason was in a wheelchair, and when I visit him, I'm always tucking his blanket under his legs. And I would joke with him. I'm pretty, I'm pretty dark humor. And I was like, Jason, how the hell does a blanket fall off you when your legs don't move? And he was like, they still vibrate. And I was like, oh my God. So came up with the idea of, basically taking adult pants with feet, sewing it to the top of a blanket. And, that was how it all started. And next thing I came up with the logo, the name Comfeet Blanket, owned by Comfeet Products LLC, which I'm going to bring other products to market to focus on below the knee comfort, because I came up with a cream that you rub it on your feet, you put on your socks, and it helps you sleep because it's a pressure point in your body. If you can, relax your feet, your body will fall asleep. So we're going to give away, I call it a condiment pack of the cream with every Comfeet order, so people can try it, and then that's how you get them hooked.
Yeah, so cool. I know you got some tips for inventors. You guys are smart right now. You are listening to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media. Come on back. Eddy Pham's going to give some tips for those inventors out there. Hey, welcome back and happy Friday. You are still listening to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media. With us is Eddy Pham. We are talking about inventions, all kinds of stuff. Very, very exciting to have him on the show today, sharing his knowledge and giving us some tips. And actually, that brings us to what we want to talk about. What kind of tips can you give for inventors out there?
Yeah, I would, I simply say because, I've met people all walks of life from, the recently single mother of children who, had to make ends meet to, a kid who never wanted to work and have his own inventions to, all types of people. And they all have the same issue across the board, no matter where they come from or what they're working on, is that they listen to people who aren't qualified to give them the advice. It's just like, I call it the barista effect. It's my own thing where you go to your neighborly barista who you're friends with and you ask them their advice about opening up a new company. Why would you do that? And my whole thing is, if you believe in you, you need to do it yourself. And I tell people, don't go to your friends and family. Yeah, they'll support you, pat you on the back, but they really don't support you. And that's not, I'm not being mean about it. My whole thing is go to people that don't really like you. And I do this myself. I have industry experts who love to hate me. But I go to them. I actually went to one this morning and said, hey, how did you like the Comfeet Blanket? And she basically said, you know what? I didn't want to like it, but I love it. So I don't go to friends and family because they're your friends and family. I go to people who don't care for me or want to see me fail or want to see a product fail. So, because that's a more truer answer. And so I always tell every person I work with, if you don't believe in you, nobody else will. And that's my first thing to get them over, because, somebody that's close to them might say, you know what, why are you doing it in this blue? It should be this blue. And I always say, how are you qualified to tell me that? So when someone asks me, I can tell them how I'm qualified to answer that question.
That is awesome. So what other advice would you have for inventors?
If you're going to be a business owner, if you're going to own something, you have to make those hard calls. So if you can do that, then you're built for this. And I got invited to speak at UCLA once for the entrepreneurial class. I got invited and I started laughing with the guy. I didn't know him. And I was like, what do you mean speak to entrepreneurial class? You can teach that? And he was like, yeah. He goes, it's a whole course now in all major schools. I'm like, that's hilarious. I was like, that is hilarious. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely on board. So when I did it, I stood up on stage and, there was 30 kids and I looked down and I basically said, all of you are way more successful than me already. I said, you actually made it to college. I didn't. I said, secondly, my second promise to you is I promise everyone in this room has used something I created or brought to market. And if you lived under a rock, you probably still have something that I made. So, and that was right. By the time the end of the show was over, an hour and a half and 90 minutes later, there's probably 200 kids in that room because they texted each other going, this guy's hilarious. And I was showing them pictures of, me working on products as a younger person. I'm 51 now. So 30 years ago, I was showing them pictures of the prototypes of George Foreman Grill and this and that and the other, and pictures in China, just traveling all over the world. I'm like, if you have an idea, there's always a marketplace for it. It doesn't matter how crazy the idea is. If you can lead the horse to water, there's going to be people that want to buy it. It does. I mean, I've seen some of the craziest stuff make sales. And I'm just like, wow, look at Snuggie. Nobody needed a blanket with arms, but 28 million of them were sold, Yeah. And if I do 10% as good through Comfeet, my whole thing is up to a few products. I never owned anything. I was always a hired hand. My company was always a hired under retainer to bring products to market. We made a very good living for 30 years. Now, everything that I bring to market, we own in-house. So now we're making money hand over fist, way better because, I let my clients educate me for 30 years. Now I'm taking all that education and experience and doing it ourselves and saving a ton of money. Like we were able to create the Comfeet Blanket for less than $1,600. That's everything all in, and then created a whole brand. So I think the most expensive one-piece component was, opening up the LLC with LegalZoom. I think that was the most expensive piece.
Okay, Eddy. So what's next for you?
So I've been working closely with government officials on the pandemic because, I helped patent an FDA-approved home COVID gargle test. So I'm bringing it to market through, direct to consumer, and it's going to be $14.95 per test or $19.95 for 2 tests a month. They recommend the CDC recommends you take 2 tests a month, and most governments and cities can't afford to give you those tests. So I'm going to be doing direct to consumer where people take their health in their own hands and doing a business plan where the businesses will get a heavily discounted rate to give them to their employees, and you can do the gargle test to find out if you're COVID positive or negative. And we built that in the last 5 weeks and pushed it through the FDA because I've done a lot of work with the FDA and got it approved. We have a bunch of senators and Congress people who gave me support letters. I started the US PRC, which is the United States Pandemic Response Center in Kansas. I have a million square foot warehouse in Kansas that I'll be fulfilling with COVID tests, with PPE, personal protection equipment. And we designed this chamber. I call it a chamber, but it's actually a walk-through tunnel where you stand in front of it, it checks your temperature, it'll let you in. Once it lets you in, the door closes and it sprays you with hydrochloric acid It sounds dangerous, but it's not. HOCl has been used for decades to rinse your mouth, wash out your eyes, use as a sanitation for surgery. So it's been on the market for a long time. I don't know why they use the word acid, which scares people. So I, as a marketer, have to educate people that the word acid is not scary because the pH is so low, but it will sanitize your whole body.
That is very cool. You know, I've got this client that makes a machine that makes hand sanitizer, uses that hypochlorous acid you were talking about. Looks like a blender, basically uses electricity and water. Anyway, you might be able to take that to some greater heights.
Yeah, and remember, your listeners for the next 2 weeks will get a $50 gift if they go to comfeetblanket.com and put in your promo code, your podcast name, and we'll put in a $50 gift. The Comfeet Blankets with shipping cost $25, and you'll be ready for wintertime.
Oh, that's very cool. So all our listeners have to do is go to comfeetblanket.com, check out, and you're going to give them a free gift, a free $50 gift, just for putting in "May the Best Brand Win" in the promo codes. Right? That's awesome, man. I could talk to you all day. So what have we learned? We have learned that people need things. They have problems to solve. Eddy solves them with a lot of different products and a lot of good knowledge. My guest today has been Eddy Pham, and it's been fantastic having you on the show. Thanks very much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. Eddy, thanks again for being on the show, and thanks everybody for listening. This has been Scott Robertson with May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media. Have a great weekend, you guys. Bye-bye.